to start, guys. This is our main appraisers from G.S. Gordon that will be giving the seminar today, and you can ask away anything, and they have a lot of
I'll be
information.
recorded?
Yes.
Oh wow,
Oh, yeah.
I would have had my makeup done.
I should have told you.
All right, Jack and I were discussing about doing this for about a year and a half, and finally we're getting around to it with schedules. Little background, I've been appraising for certified 21 years, in the business 25 years. Prior to that, I built them. So I'm an appraiser, I'm a builder, and I'm also an investor. So I have a little insight into a little bit of everything in the real estate market. I've never sold. I'm not a people person, and I believe you need to be a people person to do that.
Neither are we.
Yeah, so,
But he's a good appraiser.
so
So we don't talk to you, right? When you...
no. On that level, I could do that. It's just that, I'm probably, I won't even say I'm too honest, because that would, I'm just joking around. To be a real estate agent. No, kidding aside, I do feel like Barack Obama at the Republican convention talking to you people, because I know we're not always your favorite. And I do want to say this, as my partner was a realtor and is a realtor, Gary, for almost 40 years now. So I am sensitive and compassionate, especially in today's world, what it takes for you guys to get to a closing. Getting a listing or getting a buyer and getting them qualified, trying to sensibly talk to them about letting them know that their stainless steel microwave is not increasing the value of their house $100,000, and trying to come into all this and finally getting to that point, and the appraisal comes back $10,000 lower than your sales price. I understand that's extremely difficult, and sometimes it's unavoidable in the market if we don't have support. And basically where we're at, and how many of you guys have been selling and started right around 2003, 2004? Who's, everybody before that?
No, after.
Before that,
You've been before that.
yes.
Everybody, so when did everybody really start selling real estate? After 2005, 6?
Yes.
So you came in and learned that it actually was really hard to sell real estate. Because in 04, 05, it was, you walk in the office, I have a seller, and somebody else said, I have a buyer, and it was just that simple, and you made the deal. Today, obviously, it's extremely hard. After the subprime collapse, it got even a little more difficult to try to qualify buyers, I understand that. So, in that note, but as an appraiser, we also, after the subprime collapse, had a total revamping of our business, where I had 30-year, 20-year relationships with mortgage brokers and banks. They were abolished, and we were told we now had to go through a management company and get on a rotation basis, and we were losing clients. Fortunately, my partner's on top of the game, and he's a bright man, so we also opened up a management company as well, so we could keep some of them contacts. But what happened in this subprime collapse, and what Fannie Mae decided to do, is they wanted to make everything very, very conforming. And Sarah passed out some papers to you guys about what we have to do now for UAD, which is called the Uniform Appraisal Data Set. So we have to fit your house into a very specific category for condition and quality. Where before we had a lot of leeway to say, yeah, the house was average, and our comps, we could say superior, inferior, or we say average to good, and the house we're comparing to is average. Now it's very specific. C1, that's brand new. There's no question about it. The house is new, built from the ground up. You have C2, and this is in there in the papers that we handed out. You have C2, and I only bring this to your attention so that when you're reading an appraisal, you have a little understanding of where we're coming from and what we're forced to now fit your house into. C2 is a house that's completely renovated. We would call that good for the most part. You have C3, which is a house that has significant updating and remodeling, but it's still not completely remodeled. That would be more average to good. C4, which is pretty much just an average house, might have some updating, some deferred maintenance. And in that category, anything below that you're probably not getting a loan unless it's a 203K rehab or one of the Fannie Mae rehab loans. Then you have C5, which is a property that needs work, and C6, which is a property that needs to be torn down. And I'm paraphrasing, you can read the definitions, but it's pretty much a house that's completely inhabitable that needs total renovation. And then we came over to a new thing. Before, as appraisers, we never really considered quality because we were basically finding comparables of similar quality. It was much easier to find homes of similar quality than condition in the marketplace. Especially, you're in Levittown, it's easy to find the same quality home. They're all pretty much the same quality. Whether they're renovated or not, that falls under condition. Or if you're doing a toll development, or you're doing, a row home in the Northeast, the quality was all pretty similar. But today they want us to be very specific with quality, and those definitions are there. You have Q1 all the way down to Q6. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of Q6 in this marketplace, very little Q5, and everything else comes above that. Q4, which is your average typical home, normal flow, nothing really special, maybe in a tract development. And then C3 would be that tract development home that's a little bit nicer, like Toll Brothers, with all their fancy extras and things like that. And then you start getting into Q2, which would be your upper Makefield semi-custom built homes, all the way up to Q1. And we don't have a lot of Q1 homes in this marketplace either. That's a house that is probably a super adequacy and overbuilt for anywhere in our marketplace except, say New Hope or Upper Makefield, So, and that's a house that is completely 100% custom, where everything is custom. And we just don't see a lot of that. I mean, I see a fair amount of that in Radnor and Lower Merion, but not a lot in this market. I mean, I do see it in Upper Makefield, New Hope. So that's really where we're forced to put everything into today. And on top of that, every comp I use, somewhere along the way, I have to bracket everything. So underwriters and Fannie Mae force us now to bracket everything. So, and that means price as well. So I'll come out and you'll sell your house for $240, and I have all these comps at $280, $280, $280. Well, they want one at $230, and that's what they want. And we're forced to do a lot of these things bracketing. If you have a garage, I need a sale with a garage. And that's what they want. So we're putting 6, 7 comps in appraisals now. And the market is dictating what it is. Now, one of the biggest problems is with appraisers today is they're scared. They're scared half to death to upset Fannie Mae because there's constant threatening of blacklisting. And if you're blacklisted from Fannie Mae, you're not working because there's very few lenders who don't eventually sell to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or lend their own money. So they're afraid because, if they go a little bit higher or try to adjust a little bit higher. I've been doing this a long time and I've been threatened since day one that, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, and never had an issue ever. As long as you can make sense of it in your appraisal, it'll fly. But the thing that happened with the UAD, it was all designed so that it fits in a computer program to read it. And now what happens is if I call property C3 as a comparable, and appraiser X calls it C4, I get a letter. Why? Why did you call this C3? And I typically send them their definition back because that's what it is, But so that we're constantly double checked on everything, and underwriters have the same information we have. I mean, there used to be some leeway. I mean, who's been doing real estate more than 20 years? Remember the books? We used to have to come in and look for comparables in books. And that's how we did it. Yeah, exactly. And microfiche. I remember microfiche, putting this in there. Today, your underwriter has RealQuest, has the MLS, has everything. So if I say a property is one thing, and that description and those pictures in MLS don't say that, they're on the phone. They're writing me a letter. Why? And then I'm writing them a letter back saying, they used very good photo techniques. Because some of you guys do some really nice photos. So, I try to make phone calls if I can, if it fits into my normal course of business to ask, what's going on in a property. So we're constantly double checked and constantly getting letters. So appraisers are just afraid today So they tend to sometimes lean a tad conservative, you know, and that's just what you're starting to see. So we are a company who, if you look at the very last page there, are willing, if you have a dispute to one of our appraisals, and this is what I meet some of you people at these properties. I know Gail and I have worked several properties together and discuss it. You know your market probably better than me because you had to do great investigation to sell in your market. And if I meet you out at a property and you say, is it all right if I give you comps? I'm like, yes, why wouldn't it be all right? You know, and some of you tell me that other appraisers don't want, is this true, that other appraisers don't even want to talk to you?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
And I
We
just
met
sat
at
with-
we met at a property just recently. You and I believe.
I talk to you all the time.
Oh, okay.
I'm Lisa Longabaugh.
Oh, okay.
People, I'm Jen
Gotcha,
White.
gotcha.
Vaughn is not in here, which is interesting, because I sat with Vaughn twice on properties he was concerned with. I just texted him, I'm like, where are you? I was on Florida. And they were difficult. They were unique, they were a little high,
Sure.
they were whatever, and I said, well, we'll go through, we went through and picked comps, and I said, you're meeting them, right? And he goes, am I? I said, yes. And I said, give them the comps, they may or may not like them. I said, you know, we
Right.
went a little further out than 6 months and stuff, but both of them appraised.
Good.
And I tell everybody, like, if, I don't care what it is, I don't care if you think it's a slam dunk, you should be out there. It's your listing, you want it to appraise.
Sure.
The worst that can happen, I mean, every once in a while an appraiser kind of
don't.
fluffs you off, but I
think a lot
think
of-
most of
I think
them
a lot of builders don't.
appreciate the help. Most realtors do not.
You do,
don't.
right?
And I had
know
one
you
that
do.
came in 20,000 low over the summer, and I actually said to the agent, we talked about this when I wrote your offer, like, we knew that there was gonna be issues. And
Right.
I just assumed she would have been there. It just made no sense to me that she wasn't. We went through all the comps prior to me writing it,
Right.
and I said, I'm shocked that you didn't. Now, I
Okay.
didn't like the
There's
comps,
one-
so I then argued it as the buyer agent,
Right.
and we got 10, which was fine.
Okay.
Good.
I thought the asking price honestly was high, and so.
Sure.
But,
Sure.
look, I'm like, where are you?
So,
But you're
I'll-
saving the best part.
I'm his appraiser.
no, you don't have to. When a realtor meets me in a property and hands me comps, and some of you they highlight and say, this is why this house is worse or better than that one. I'm like, this is great.
Well, and most
Because a
likely
lot of
we've been in them.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't have the privilege of going into most of these homes. There are some comparables that I actually appraised, so I know those houses intimately. But for the most part, if you've been in some of these homes, or
Usually I'm in them.
in your office, I'm assuming it's not to you work together as a team, not always competitive with each other, that you could come over to Lisa, you know, say, hey, another realtor in your office is listing this property. Can you tell me about it? They're probably going to give you the honest lowdown on the property, where they might not be as honest with me because, you know, they want their property to look good. Not that you would not be honest, but it's your job to make your properties look good to sell your properties, and I get that. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, my name's Hope. I actually have a little advantage. I appraised for about 25 years.
Okay.
So I just want to ask you, how are underwriters accepting time adjustments these days?
Okay, that's a great question. And you know what? You just did something, Hope, and I'm sorry, I was very ignorant. I don't normally speak in front of people that I don't know. So, I'm John Kostovich from GS Gordon Appraisals, and this is my daughter, who is also our office manager, Sarah Silvestri. So, to answer your question, underwriters have no problem with time adjustments to a property in the negative effect in today's marketplace. But they do have a problem with time adjustments on the positive effect in today's marketplace because there has been no substantial gain that we could see yet in certain markets to show that. So if we can prove it and show it over a long period of time, an underwriter will accept it. They don't have they can kill it if they want, but they can't penalize me if I can prove it.
Okay, so like for the benefit of everybody here, can I share with this, you know, that agents, if they want to support a sale and they want to support a positive time adjustment, they can do that by presenting to you a paired sale. If they have the same exact house that has sold, say like a year earlier, and they know in that neighborhood this house has sold without any improvements to it, a year later, that will prove a
For a time adjustment, it's gonna need more than a paired sales analysis. It's gonna have to be proven in what we have form that we have to put in our appraisals today called the market conditions addendum, where we are supposed to, as appraisers, analyze the market based upon a form put out by Fannie Mae to determine if that market is increasing or decreasing. And the form is, if you put in the right data, an accurate form to determine that for the most part. So if I would use it on a compared sales analysis to say that this market is increasing, it better be consistent with my addendum, the form called the market conditions addendum. It must relate that over at least a decent period of time for it to go that way.
I have a question though, if they're not supporting, positive time adjustments, then that means that they're totally discounting the fact that, prices have been rising over the
No, they're
last-
not totally discounting the fact, but it has to be, because, again, because of the fall, everybody's afraid. So what happens is unless you can show it over a long period of time, one sale versus another sale is not gonna fly, just because there's too many variables within that one sale versus a market overall. And we're analyzing the market when it comes to a time change
It's just
for
tough-
value.
It's tough when you're using comps historically and property values are increasing now.
This is true, and that's why many times, and a lot of our lenders are requiring listings and pendings as well to support our appraisals. You know, but that's a great question, and I agree completely. And we were doing that in 2004, 2005. I was making $30,000 time adjustments upward because that's where our market was going, and I could prove that that's where our market was going. I could show it. I could lay it out over a period of time. If I can't lay it out, and this is why that form was developed after the subprime fall, to be able to show that either way. Typically, they don't like time adjustments at all, positive almost never, unless, again, it's really relevant within our addendum. So,
What was the date that this UAD uniform appraisal?
2010, January 1st, 2010, I believe it was,
Thank you.
it went into effect. And not all lenders were requiring it. Like a lot of your banks that were lending their own money weren't necessarily requiring it because they thought they'd never sell to Fannie Mae. And what they found out is I was starting to do a lot of reappraisals for the same lender, just typing it onto UAD because they thought, I may sell this to Fannie Mae. And that's a great question. It brings me into something else I was going to talk about, is today, most lenders are conforming to Fannie Mae standards. Even, you know, that small bank, Hapro Federal Savings, is starting to conform because even though they're typically a origination portfolio 80-20 lender, they still want it done on Fannie Mae forms and conforming to Fannie Mae UAD because who knows if they're gonna have to sell this. And today, more gets sold than ever before, especially in the small private bank sector. And Jack would probably be able to talk about that better than I would, because I don't know that world that well. But so it's all falling under these forms. So what happens is we have a set of guidelines called USPAC. That's our protocol as appraisers. And then Fannie Mae has guidelines designed for us as appraisers that we must follow to fit their standards for them to lend upon. And pretty much it's been adopted by most lending institutions, and we use their forms, as well as Freddie Mac also buys into this. So what happens there is we now do everything according to Fannie Mae guidelines. And they've put very specific guidelines out on a lot of things. And Lisa and I were having this conversation the other day regarding room count in garages and just different things. So I just wanted to give you a little overview from where we stand on a property versus what you guys sometimes see on a property. So, Fannie Mae, and this is a big one, Fannie Mae has made a hard line black and white statement that any area below grade that whole area is considered basement level. Unless, now there is an unless, it is conforming and consistent to the marketplace and acceptable as living space. That would be, so for example, you have we'll take 19067 in Falls Township. You have a lot of split levels over there with colonials in that neighborhood. And a lot of that lower level that has a garage and the front of it is below grade, that's considered, according to Fannie Mae, basement. A lot of your bi-levels you're seeing, if it's below grade, it's basement, according to Fannie Mae. Now, I do appraisals out in Valley Forge Mountain. They have these California ranchers. You pull up to the driveway, it's a ranch. On that first floor is a kitchen, a living room, and a family room. No bedrooms, no beds, sometimes. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit. And then you go downstairs, and that's where all the bedrooms and bathrooms are. So typically, if I was to follow Fannie Mae's guideline on this, this house would have 3 rooms, no bedrooms, no bathrooms. But according to consistency within the market, it's not an uncommon home, and many people have the same style. There we can waver from the guideline. It's not a rule, it's a guideline, so we have some room to waver. Recently, Jack and I had this conversation about FHA, not including that. FHA has recently adopted Fannie Mae's form and is going to the UAD guidelines, so it's staying consistent across the board.
Oh, really?
So we are now, so anything below grade, that whole area is considered basement. So when you walk in and you're saying it has 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and you get the appraisal back, it's 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. I get this, in fact, I tell homeowners, right as I'm appraising their home, this is not gonna be in your appraisal as living space, you know, yes.
What if you have it, okay, front of the house, bottom is like a family room, laundry room, whatever, below grade, but the whole back of the house, walkout, like everything else is walkout, is that still considered?
No, that's what I'm saying, is it consistent with the market? So is that typical in the market that everything is that way? Then yes, you can escape the guideline.
But are you talking about a house that basically, let's say it's on a hill like this,
Yeah,
so you can have a walk out of the basement,
yes.
but but it's a true basement? I don't know, what do you think?
Still
John?
basement.
It's still a basement.
Again, there's those rare occasions where functional utility fall into play, whether it is a basement or not. Like those
Just-
homes in
yeah.
Valley Forge Mountain, you know, or sometimes you walk in them and it's all bedrooms upstairs and the whole lower level
Is-
is down. Yes, Hope?
I think a good example would be like a bi-level style home, you know, where it's typical that anything that might be below grade is still considered, gross living area. You know, even though like you might have to walk up steps and
Right,
and like, you know, some of it in the front might be like, you know,
yes.
below grade, but if you use all bi-level comps, that's.
With a
not
similar
considered-
situation is absolutely correct. If you can escape that guideline. But on the other hand, they'd rather see me use all bi-level comps and consider them, the bi-level comps, as basement as well, instead of giving it gross living area. And in the end, it becomes a wash because the value becomes the same because you're using the same comparables. Now, we are, as appraisers, allowed to give considerable value to that finished lower level based upon its quality. And it used to be before where appraisers said, it's worth $2,000. Or, you know, it was very hard to determine. Now they want square footage. They want to know per square foot what's the value you're giving. Yes.
That's what I was told this past May, sold a colonial with a walkout basement.
Yes.
But interestingly enough, on top of what you're saying, I asked the appraiser what was his definition of, you know, the gross living space. And he said the walkout basement doesn't count because it has to be all 4 sides have to be.
That's correct.
Yeah.
If any part of the
So
base,
any
the
part
honey
that's-
part of the lower level is below grade, the whole level is considered
Correct.
below grade.
So I think that's a good rule of thumb to
Yes.
keep in mind.
That's basically, yes.
Okay, so I had a house, like a year and a half ago, and I had the
Thanks for
appraisal done, and he did, it was a rancher with the basement.
Yes.
So, he took all the, like, there wasn't a lot in that development, so he went across, like, say, Street Road, and went into another neighborhood, which I didn't think was as nice as where we were, but he said it all has to be the same type of home, and it doesn't matter where it's at, which I thought that would affect.
Appraising is the same thing as you selling, location, location, location,
Right.
you know? So I'm not comparing Andalusia to New Hope.
Right.
You know, it's just not gonna happen just because I have the same house.
Right.
So it is location, 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 and that's why we're afforded the ability to make adjustments within our reports, as long as we can justify those adjustments and comment on them heavily.
But don't you generally, like if it's a ranch house, you are generally trying to stay within?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I'm looking location first, but if it's a ranch and there's 3 capes that sold on the block, the market is the block more than it is the ranch home, 3 blocks away.
And just, most of the questions that you guys are asking really sound like questions that come after the house doesn't appraise. In other words, because if it appraises, there's no problems. But if it doesn't appraise, you guys are coming back and go, well, I got this comp and I got that comp. You have to remember that when they're doing the comps, they do try to stay in the same neighborhood, they do try to stay with the same kind of property, so, like I always say, send me the comps first before I even send them to John, and I'll take a look at them. Because you guys are trying to get value any way you can, but the appraisers are limited to what they can do based on what's available to use as comps, and that's really the big thing. One of the things I was gonna suggest is, we explain how a challenge to an appraisal goes. Like, what happens when you challenge an appraisal? Where does it go? How does it get done? Does it go right back to the appraiser, or does it go to a third party, or who actually does that and how they do it? So maybe you guys can touch
Yeah,
on that real quick.
and that form is on the back. Listen, we're not allowed to discuss value with you, per se, what I'm appraising it for. After I appraised it, I'm really not allowed to receive according to the new guidelines of Dodd-Frank and everybody else.
There's none of them in here, so you can say the truth.
So nobody can say, John, you're a moron, you didn't make my value, which used to be common in my world. So today we do have a form, and again, this is your market. You're experienced in your market. You know something I may not know. If I'm not making a value, and there's a comp out there that you said, why didn't he use this? Because what happened was, and I've heard this story many times. He typed in the development name and only looked at the development, and the realtor never put the development name in MLS, so he missed it. And that's possible. Some appraisers may do that. I just don't always look at development name in my search, so I search a lot of different ways. So there is a form on the back. You can fill out the form. Again, it's very simple. When I do thoroughly myself, I can't speak for any other appraiser. Thoroughly myself, if I am not going to make a sales price, you are getting the best appraisal I've ever done. Because I want to make sure that if I'm not making that sales price or appraising at that sales price, that I'm have justifiable reason not to. Because I'm assuming that if realtors are representing the buyer and seller, and that there is education going on between everybody, and it's a fair market arm's length transaction, then it's experienced the market, and this is what the market's willing to pay for it. I should be able to find out that, hey, this is what the market says is going for. Let me see why this isn't going to appraise for that. And I will, if I'm appraising it and the sales price $250 and I'm at $251, it comes in at $251, I'm not stressing, because it's coming in at $251 and everything makes sense. If the sales price is $250 and I'm at $232, why?
Most of the time I'll get a call then.
And I'm not allowed to call Jack.
Right.
So we talk about fishing, okay?
Exactly
Because I
right.
love to fish and Jack loves to
Right.
fish. So we'll talk about fishing and how I threw my lure 322 feet.
Right.
And I really needed 325 feet. And I just don't know how to get that extra distance.
And then I tell him I got another lure that he throws that way.
Yeah, so he's going to check in the tackle box to see if there's anything else out there I can throw to get it a little bit further. So.
Well, this goes back to, if you have a property that you think is challenged, why aren't you there meeting the appraiser as the listing agent? And if you're the buyer agent, maybe you should be having a conversation with that listing agent and saying, hey, I'll meet the appraiser, or hey, are you meeting the appraiser with comps? Discuss with the listing agent. We're not stupid. We all know when something's gonna be an issue.
And that is your
So then
best.
to yell at the mortgage company or the appraiser,
But you
it's
were
like, it
saying-
doesn't make sense.
But you're saying even if it's not questionable, you should be out there no
I
matter
think
what.
you should go, like,
That's your
it's
best
just turned
chance.
into that. If you really are, unless it's like undervalue, I would say go.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, again, that's your best chance to get the appraiser the one time, because you're gonna need him there, so he has to be there. After that, if the guy can call you back, he's not calling you back. He doesn't have to. It's not gonna be a big deal. But like I said, John kind of is old school. For those of you who are old school, we used to have relationships with our appraiser. We just called them up, we do our appraisal, they take care of it, we would talk. That's no longer really allowed. But like I said, sometimes John needs fishing help, so we do talk. But again, it's one of those things where we can find things out beforehand, and we actually have a little more control of the appraisals as opposed to what you might run into. So like I said, John's giving the information on how he does stuff, and he's giving you information on the industry as a whole. But again, there are some, you guys know, you've dealt with those appraisers. I can't talk to you, I should report you for even calling me. That's not what we get with these guys, just so you know.
But you are allowed to call.
We
Just
are
so
allowed
you
to
know,
call.
you can call,
I
he's allowed to
We're
call.
not, yeah.
Right.
They have to get in.
There can be-
I am not allowed to call John anymore and tell him he's a moron.
Right.
His therapist told me that. It had nothing to
I don't know what he's talking about.
So really, we're not allowed to beat them up, but if we have a question, we're definitely allowed to call, just like you are. You're allowed to call and go, hey, you know, you didn't use this comp, can you tell me why? And he should be able to tell you why. Some of those newer appraisers are afraid. They're petrified. They're afraid that if they talk to you, somehow somebody's gonna find out, they're gonna lose their license, or they can't do FHA appraisal anymore. So it does make a difference. So, like I said, you can call and he can talk to you, but the appraiser can also say, hey, we've hit the line. You can't ask me that question, and I can't tell you, and you can't yell at me. Click, goodbye. But they have the ability to do that.
I've called a lot of appraisers, so.
She
I have.
is.
I have a whole
biatch.
file when I do a class on this, on how to argue them, and, it's a class.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's, like, to me, I just put everything in writing why I think, not like, why I think that your appraisal sucks. I would
Right.
never say that, but, you know, that maybe this comp would be better than something else or whatever.
She's done
or-
very
or-
well with those two.
I have
You
done
said
very
that.
well.
Sure.
Not the meeting them, but like the arguing them.
Right.
I have gotten. I mean, the guy actually called me and apologized. Like, he was adamant was not gonna go out, and I kept saying, I don't know where you came up with the square footage. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's the same house. It's the house next door. Like,
Right.
how can it be different? He goes, that looks bigger. And I go, stop it now.
Yeah.
Like that. And so he actually said, well, I'll go out and measure. He said, but you know, if it's different. And then he called me and apologized. He said, you're right. He goes, I measured correctly. It went in wrong. And he said, my assistant
Sure.
put it in. He said, but it's still me. And he said, I'm really, really sorry.
Right.
Well, that was $20,000.
Huge.
So I could have let the deal die, or
Right.
I could have argued. So
Right.
I was like,
But going back to arguing also, the big thing about arguing is don't just argue to argue.
and argue doesn't
Literally.
mean like beat him up.
Right.
Just,
Like, she
I
actually
say argue,
she
but
actually
it's not
has somebody at home that she can go, hey, what do you think? Should I do this? And I'll tell her. So, but again, like I just did one.
Can we call you?
Yeah, absolutely, I don't have a problem. I'm
Good
perfectly
question.
fine with
I
that, to
have a
be honest
question
with you.
about bedrooms.
No. Well, and the
What
one
is
that
building
one was the
classification
measurement
of
was.
a bedroom? Because I see attics and people just threw a mattress in there and they say this is a
If
full
it comes
bedroom.
in low,
And I said, well, there's
lower,
steps
they
that
have-
going up, but there's not a closet up there. Or there's not a door. Some people says has to have a door, a window, and a closet. So what's the true definition of a bedroom?
True definition of a bedroom would be that would act functional for someone to sleep in as a bedroom. So, what is that? It could be anything. So, you cannot have a functional obsolescence to form a bedroom. So, for example, you'll see some of these older homes. Bristol has a lot of them. If you guys sell in Bristol, where you go in and you have to go through a room to get to another room, and there's 3 rooms up there and a bathroom, and you're calling it a 3-bedroom twin townhouse row home. It's really a 2-bedroom because functionally you cannot walk through a bedroom to get to a bedroom, unless
There's always a caveat.
it's common in the market. And everything's all about what's common in the market. So if I'm using 3 other homes in Bristol and they're calling them all 3 bedrooms and you have to walk through the bedroom, obviously it's common in a home that was 140 years old that has really no closets because they didn't have clothes and they didn't mind walking over their sibling to get to the next room. So, and that's just the reality of the situation. Now, if that exists in a situation where these homes are 5 years old, it's probably not the same,
Because I have one that's, they go in the bedroom,
right?
which then you go, I classify, go up to attic, but they classify that going up to another bathroom. bedroom. So you're going into a bedroom,
To get
going
to a bedroom.
To
upstairs
get to a third floor.
another
So
bedroom.
functional, that's not functionally
A bedroom.
normal within that marketplace, I'm assuming. So you're actually going through a den to get to a bedroom, or you're in the bedroom and going to the den of that bedroom.
Yeah.
Walk-up
So,
closet.
again,
If it's normal,
there's also, there's also the situation of,
When you're in an area you don't know.
if both, if that's 2,000 square feet and every other house is 2,000 square feet, and it's a difference between 4 bedrooms and 5 bedrooms, it probably doesn't make a lot of difference, because we're not putting a lot of weight on bedrooms in a marketplace where, you know, a certain number of bedrooms are considered normal and acceptable in the marketplace versus some that isn't.
So
You know,
basically, yeah.
2 verse
Have to have
4
a
is
window.
different than 4 verse 5.
But if you're off by
Yes, sir.
$1,500, you need to count that bedroom. $1,500 is pretty good. If you're off by $15,000, you go count that as a bedroom. It's going to be worth $15,000.
Well,
That's not
the
gonna
problem I
happen.
have is when I search for a house, and I'm looking for a 3-bedroom house, and I go out to that house, and no, that's not a 3-bedroom house, that's a 2-bedroom house.
Right.
You know, there's not even a window in the bedroom, it's
Right.
just a closet and a bed and a.
Well, that's
and
because
it.
the other realtors aren't as well
You know,
trained as
so-
you guys are here.
But I look on public records, and even public records have it that way.
Well, sure.
Public
So-
records
Public
could be
records.
wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just-
So it's all
that's
about,
what I'm saying.
it's all
What
about
is
the
the
functional
classification?
utility of the room. So, and again, there's no cut
Sounds
and
like a
dry,
nice flat.
FHA has a little more cut and dry, but, go ahead, Hope, you were gonna say?
Probably doesn't have heat.
I think it was just answered, I just wanted to share that a bedroom is anything above grade that's completely finished and has a window, and heated, and has a window and a closet.
No, you don't even need a closet. No, I do homes all the time that are 250 years old with no closet. Is that not, and I go in and there's nothing, so,
Count of functional obsolescence because there's no closet?
well, if all my comparables are 250 years old, it's probably common and typical for the market. What is the adjustment? You're putting an armoire in there.
Yeah.
And using your, you know, people use dressers, not closet at a certain time, and
But they do have
trunks.
to have a window, right?
So a lot of it all depends on the market overall. So yes, you do need to have a window, to answer your question.
For egress.
Yes.
Right.
That's
And it has
what
to be
I
above
called you
grade.
about, 'cause I was a little thrown off.
Oh, and you can have a bedroom below grade. You can have a bedroom below grade. It cannot be considered within your gross living area count. So you can call it, I can call it whatever I want below grade, bedroom, den, family room, yada, yada, yada. I can't consider it a bedroom when I'm comparing to other homes within the above grade adjustments.
Can you list it as a 3-bedroom?
You can do whatever you want, because you're not under the same guideline as us.
Well, John, I called John for help a couple weeks back, and I said about a garage, 2-car wide, 2-car deep. Little did I would have called that a 4-car garage. What did you respond? All you realtors do that.
How do you get the cars in the back out?
I never
You
heard
move the
that.
cars in the
See,
front,
that's
so it's really
something
2-car
that-
garage, because you can't egress 4 cars. You can only egress 2 cars.
Call it a barn.
I would still market it as a 4-car garage,
Gotcha.
but they would count it as a 2-car garage with a lot of storage.
Yes.
And that was kind of gonna be my question, and same in the sense of the bedrooms, just because, as a realtor, you would market it as 3 bedrooms.
Sure.
That and the appraisal of 2 bedrooms would be 2 separate things. I mean, whether the agent decides to market it as a 4-car garage, it's being appraised as a 2-car garage.
Exactly.
Right, okay, so it's just 2 separate.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and when they come back and say, well, it's really a 4-car garage, I'm held to a certain guideline that says it's the width, not the depth. You know, and it's depth as well. If there's a door on both ends of the garage, then it's a 4-car garage.
If they can drive out the back.
Exactly. So it's all about the egress. Again, it all comes back down to functional utility.
Does it have to be paved in the back?
To come out?
Probably not running into a lot of these.
Yeah,
just
probably,
thinking
no,
about it the other day, and I'm like,
it would need to be
how would
common
you
and
do
typical
that?
to the marketplace.
Yeah, I never saw it before, so
Right.
probably not.
So it would be common and typical to the marketplace.
I have another question.
Yes.
So I'm with my seller and.
Did I meet you at the property
Yes.
in Langwood? Okay, yes, the one we were listing before
Yes.
sale, okay,
Yeah.
cul-de-sac there?
Yep,
Yes,
you got it.
okay, I remember.
So, on a different property, I go out to the seller and they make a big deal about the fact that they have so much land. How much does the land pet contribute to the appraisal?
Well, again, that's a great question. You have 2 types of land, excess and surplus. So you have excess land, which is land that can ultimately be subdivided and used for value in some way, and surplus land, which is just
Surplus, just.
more grass to cut.
Right.
You know, and it gives you a great volleyball court. So that's what needs to be determined when you're doing the appraisal based upon what the zoning allows, and then you determine whether it's surplus or excess land, and then you determine whether there's value contributed to it. But if you have 20,000 square feet versus 25,000 square feet, it's probably not going to have a lot of contributory value, as opposed to having 4 acres and versus, half acre. But at the same time, I do appraisals all the time in certain zoning areas that you have to have a 5 acre minimum. So if you have 7 acres versus somebody else who has 5 acres, your 2 acres really is just surplus land because it can never be subdivided and used for additional land. Yes, Hope?
I was just gonna say, so if it's subdividable, then that would add value.
It would add value, but at the same time, does it add the value of the cost to go through everything to make it subdividable?
Right.
So that's another thing we have to determine as appraisers. So, did I answer your question? Okay. I also wanted to touch a little bit, and I know some of you are doing FHA stuff, but before I get into that, this form that we have at the last page we gave you, Sarah will explain a little more on what you need to do to process that.
Is this the challenge?
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
form of challenge.
Now, this is how you guys do it, right? This is how they do it at GS.
This is just for our office.
Yeah. I got Monday, nice thing.
I'm not sure if everybody got a copy of this, I really only
I'll
printed
make
out
some.
15, okay. This form right here is, I guess, the best way to put it, the legal way of requesting what we call a value reconsideration request. You can fill this out, or the homeowner, if they're mad or upset about us missing whatever. So what you can do is, whoever's filling it out, just fill in the top section, property address, just so we know what you're referring to. Name and phone number is for whoever is filling it out, so it could either be you or the homeowner. Down here, we have left this open space for commentary. This is to vent if needed. We prefer something where, some sort of GLA was missed. There's a question about the attic. There's always the attic. Is that included in the GLA? So we'll usually respond with, what the regulations are for that. And then we left this space open for 3 comparables. Now, we limit the request to 3 comparables because that's more than enough to support a value. And I just received a request this morning where I literally got 3 pages packed full of comps. And I'm like, I'm not gonna make the appraiser go through this. This is beyond the scope of work. So I've kind of created this form I actually just made this myself, just to sort of contain the request because sometimes they can really go on and on and on. So this form, I can email it to you so you have a Word copy of it and you can just hang on to it. Then once the form is filled out, send it back to Jack, Lisa, or I'm not sure who Melissa is usually the processor. She has, the 3 of them, they're the ones that need to request it to us. The realtors, homeowners are not allowed to send it to us directly. We can't actually open up, the order again to process it as a revision request. At that point, we'll open it up on our end. I send it off to the appraiser. Don't contact any of the appraisers with this because they don't really have the capability of reopening the order and getting, in touch with the processors again. And then we send it off to the appraiser. We send them this exact form. They're the ones that see this. I highly discourage putting in a specific value that you want. We're not actually allowed to pass that on to the appraiser. Like, you can't just say, I need X
You
amount
screwed up.
because
Your cats should have been 340 feet.
yeah, because then that could actually be actually undue influence, pressure, all that sort of stuff. So we could all get in a lot of trouble for that. Then what the appraisal will do is he'll review the comparables. If he finds that one of them was a legitimate comp, he'll put it in the report. I don't see it happen that often because they do know their market. But if you have one that they could have just missed, I mean, it happens every once in a while. Everybody is human, but then any of the comps that they felt that were not comparable for whatever reason, what they'll do is they'll actually put a dated addendum in the bottom of the supplemental addendum or general text stating why they weren't comparable, and then actually address any other concerns that were in the commentary section. If there's any questions, then your information is on there, so we can always reach out if we have any further questions. But at that point, a revised report is sent back to Jack, Lisa, or Melissa. and then, you'll get it passed on from there. So that's the appropriate process for this. If you want this form emailed out to you, I can send it off to Lisa when I get back to the office. That way you have, the Word document of it, and then you can just, hang on to it and use as needed.
Maybe just put it up on the Facebook page.
Yeah, I could do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way
Just
you
make
guys
sure
do it.
it's
So,
signed
all the third-party companies aren't the same, and correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of times if you challenge an appraisal, that'll go back to the third party, they'll have a second appraiser look at that on the challenge. Wanted to see how the first one was done?
That happens.
Yeah.
That
So it
happens.
depends on where you're having this done. A lot of times it doesn't go right back to the original appraiser who did it and say, hey, take a look at this again. It might go to a second appraiser who you guys don't know who
I
that is.
haven't
yet.
seen that.
It does happen,
I
actually,
just
in the
assumed
third
that
parties.
the third party
Well, that's only
company,
because-
somebody in there is an appraiser.
But that's only because you go right after the appraiser.
No, I
Yeah.
usually.
Bypass
No, I
No, no,
do
no,
reduce,
all kinds
I
of
do
rules.
reduce.
No, I know, it depends on the appraiser, cause some of them will
Yeah.
say, I can't talk to you if they put it through the third party company, and I'll go ahead and do that. I've had other ones say, put down your thoughts, submit it over, I'll have the underwriter review it.
Right.
And then the underwriter says, yes, this should be
And
redone.
it does, it all depends,
So
it all
depends
depends
on-
on who the third party company is that you're using, so,
Yeah.
and like I said, we use these guys all the time, and John's done work for other agents in the office without even, us being involved. So, he does a lot of stuff that you won't find other appraisers doing, so if you guys need help, he's a great resource before you get into the problem. Like, if you got a listing that you're going out on, you're going, man, we're not gonna hit this value, you might wanna call and say, hey, John, can you help me out here? He doesn't want to be doing your job for you, but he would have no problem, I'm sure, helping.
Not at all.
See, told you.
Yeah, so, but
Was I
yeah.
gonna say no?
Yeah, really.
John, you more, I'm calling you.
You just won't pick up your phone call.
Right.
But if you guys have any questions about the form at all, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And
Don't
a
use
lot
that
of times
form if you're
one-
arguing one with that's not them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, right.
It's always
It
right.
sounds like common sense, but.
Right, I'm just saying, that's the other thing. And most of the time, if you do have conflict, bring them to me first, I'll look at them beforehand. I can really make the job a lot easier. And, most of the time, John and I are pretty much on the same page, so.
I have a question about, the changes like with TRID, and like how that would be affected if you challenged,
I was gonna ask him about that, because I'm not sure. I'm gonna ask what the effects of TRID we're gonna have for the appraisal, if you know if there is any.
Trib, fill me in a little more.
Yeah, I
Oh.
don't think it
I don't think
would.
there's
I don't
any-
think it would either.
I don't think there's any changes for the
The only
appraisal.
issue
That's
would
the
be-
new stuff coming out on October 3rd.
Okay,
It's
For
changing a
time
lot
frames
for
and
us.
forms.
send me the information and I'll let you know. 'Cause
Yeah.
I've not looked into
Oh,
this.
Unless your appraisal
It's
didn't come
1,800
in until
pages.
like right before settlement, and your price changed right before settlement,
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
know why that would.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
Yeah, we don't have,
There's no HUD ones anymore after October 3rd.
Oh, okay.
right, right.
We don't go to settlement.
We go to consummation.
Ah,
Yeah.
Just like you said, he knows something crazy.
That's very sensitive.
But what she said.
Sounds great.
Well, there's
A little edgy, if you ask me.
If you guys don't know about it, it's not affecting your
Yeah,
side at all.
Yeah, because they would beat us over the head with it.
Is Joe Thur in here?
Yes,
Joe isn't
Where's
here.
he at?
he's not in the.
He's not
room.
here, he's actually in the office, though.
I had a question about one of his listeners. Never mind. Before I forgot.
Do you want his number?
No. I wanted to touch a little bit on FHA as well, because I know some of you deal with FHA in certain areas that you're working in. FHA, as you may or may not know, did totally revamp their lending guidelines for repairs. There used to be a repair sheet called a VC1, which was a very specific checklist you went through, and then there were other things added to that. That has been abolished for the most part, and they have come up with what is called the MPR, the minimal property repairs for a property, and they fall under what is called the 3 S's, which is safety, soundness, and security. And that majority of that is totally put on the appraiser's shoulders to make the determination of what we think, because we're supposed to be experts, because we took the FHA class, on what that is. Some of it is very simple, and we still have to do the same inspection we did before. Turn on all the faucets, flush all the toilets, check every outlet, turn on all the lights, and go from there to make sure everything's working on the mechanical end. And this falls under soundness. of the soundness of the property. So are all the utilities working, the mechanicals working, there's no plumbing leaks, making sure this property is sound. Is there any structural conditions to make sure that there's no problems structurally? And I had an FHA recently that just had a major structural problem where the back wall was completely caving in. They came, they did the work, they fixed it, and it went through without any issues. So that is basically your soundness issues. You have safety issues, which, you know, we've run into some crazy things recently, but what I've been finding, especially in some of my northeast row homes and whatnot, is there's a lot of retaining walls that are 3-4 feet high that have nothing to stop a child from walking off the edge of that retaining wall onto a concrete sidewalk.
You guys probably heard from Mike Doyle, somebody called for a fence. I actually had that happen too. Never have I heard that before in my life. Never. I actually went off going, are you kidding me? They're asking for a fence. The back slope, the back slope on the yard was, something that was a little bit more than what they felt safety, you know.
Makes sense,
Yeah.
when you think of that.
And I should have done this, but FHA has a hotline number where you could call them and ask them anything you want to ask them, and they'll tell you if it's an FHA violation.
Really?
So yeah, it's an 800 number. Rhonda has it. I'll make sure Sarah gets it and gets it out to the office. And I'll do that all the time. I'll go, listen, I got this situation. Is this FHA? And basically I say, can a kid get really hurt? I go, yeah. They go, yeah, it's definitely an FHA violation. I'm like, okay. And it just works out. So they offer that. So other things on safety, the one thing that they are bent on still today is lead-based paint. If the house is built before 1978 and there's any type of chipping paint from the first level down, inside and out, on objects in the yard, it needs to be taken care of. Scraped, repainted, or covered. You know, so if you have a lower level trim and you cap it with aluminum, that counts as scraping and painting as well. So that's their main thing. Paint is their main thing, and obviously they want all the electric, plumbing, HVAC to work properly. They want the roof to have at least 2 years of lifespan on it. How do I determine if it has 2 years of lifespan? I don't. I said it appears to have 2 years of lifespan, you may want to get a roofer. They go with my appears. So, but I do see some roofs that I say, that's done.
What if there's a roof with a whole bunch of patches on it? They're patches.
Yeah, I probably will call for a roof cert. I won't take that liability just because I'm not. But I will note that there are patches on the roof. I looked in the attic. There appeared to be no stains, and we're okay.
You have to look in the attic too,
Perfect.
right? You have to have access to the
We
attic.
have to look at an attic. That's another thing. You know, I'll come into a house, not so much on sales, but I'll do a refinance and I'll say they gotta get in the attic. Well, 45 minutes later, when we move all the boxes and everything out of the way, I can get into the attic. But yes, at FHA, we're gonna do an attic inspection as well, and a crawl space inspection. We definitely are supposed to be looking in crawl spaces.
Dirt floors don't work.
This is not how I dress to appraise, trust me, because I am in crawl spaces and running around yards and doing that. And then you have security, which is the other thing. That's if you have broken windows where someone could actually access the property. No doorknobs, no locks on doorknobs, exterior doors, obviously, that type of a situation. Or if there's padlocks on the outside of interior rooms. Oh yeah, I see it all the time. I'm thinking, who are you keeping in this room that you need to lock? Obviously, they're keeping people out because they don't want people in their rooms because that's where they store stuff that they probably shouldn't store.
Yeah.
So,
How about
or the woman who goes, I don't trust my children. I'm like,
Really?
why?
How about
You obviously didn't scare your children like
I
I did.
didn't beat them enough when they were younger.
No, just
Yeah.
kidding. Yes.
How about some of the other safety issues, radon, mold, all that?
We're not, radon mold, that's on you.
Doesn't matter for you.
FHA appraisers are not required, we are required for mold. If we notice mold, to recommend a mold certification if we see it. We're not mold experts, we're not, well, most appraisers are not
So it's the same as the
radon
roof.
experts. I am certified with the EPA to
So
test
it's
for
the same as the
radon.
roof, you refer it.
Yes, I'll
And
call for a cert.
termite now, I think termite just changed, they're looking for pretty much on all the FHA case.
Only, I clarify, only if the agreement sale requires that and only if they say that
Right.
we need it.
Right.
Yeah, I only call for termites if
You
I
see-
see structural situations
Right.
because it would affect the soundness of the
Right.
property.
But you can still get an addendum to the
Right,
agreement sale.
to
waiving
waive it,
Yeah.
right.
What about handrails, like
Handrails, well, again, it's up to the appraiser, on what needs a handrail. If I go to a Levittown house that used to have them stairwells with the cables that ran up to the
Yeah.
handrails, and they've removed them completely, and it's just an open set of wooden steps with no
Just
riser
top row.
boards or anything like that, and it's just treads, I'm probably gonna call for a handrail, just because I think a 2-year-old should not be walking down them steps.
So is FHA not trusting the townships to do their job, basically?
Well, not every township requires a UNO,
Right.
so, you know, not every township requires it. And I wanna touch on one other thing too. As realtors going in to sell a property, especially Levittown, you run into this a lot in Levittown, I run into this a lot in Warminster, is additions or conversions of non-living space to living space. So, a lot of Levittown homes had a garage at one time. They put up a wall in front of the garage door, leave the garage door there and make it a family room. And I walk in and go, hey, do you have a permit for this? Oh, we don't need a permit, we left the garage door. I go, no, you're trying to hide something from the township, you need a permit, you know? But I don't say that, I say, oh, okay. I go, so you didn't get a permit? And I usually leave there and say, listen, this was converted, the homeowner didn't have a permit, I'm not going to your township building to rat out the guy.
Right.
So I'm leaving it, the burden now becomes back on that homeowner to either produce a permit or get a permit or the deal dies. But I highly recommend if you're gonna be selling a house and there is an addition or a converted garage or something has been done significantly to the property, that you make sure you're selling a property that has been permitted to do that. Even if they go, we did this 60 years ago, that's probably gonna fly on a grandfather situation. But most new renovations that involve any type of structural or changing from living space to non-living space and vice versa is required a permit in most townships that I know of. Because I did a guy's house in the city not that long ago that was a sale, and I walked in, beautiful, and he renovated this house to the T, beautiful flip. And it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranchplex, and he turned it into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And I walked in, I said, do you have permits for this? He goes, oh no, this was just a renovation of stuff that was already here. I go, was the 2nd bathroom here? He goes, oh no, I put that in. I go, do you have a permit for that? No. You know, you upgraded to 200 amp electric, all new plumbing, brand new kitchen, and all this electrical work, no permits, and he's selling this house. And I called the realtor, I said, you know, he has no permits for this. She went, what? And I said, yeah. So it was Remax, so you guys should be happy about that. Deal didn't go through. So after that, I just basically leave it up to you guys if you have any questions for Sarah or I.
You can eat while you're asking those questions.
I was gonna say, why don't we get food and
Yeah,
then
get
Sure.
food.
that's all we're asking for. You should
There you
get
go.
food too, you should
Uh,
probably be first.
Look, I got storage. Actually, I'm going for root now Wednesday, so I'm not eating much. And I'm on
Why,
painkillers,
eat it
so
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't have to use
it hurts to eat.
No.
Need a bigger training. Or a bigger eating room.
There you go. Here, I got a question for you guys, this is for John actually too, while you're eating. Has anybody ever heard of what a Tidewater initiative is, except for Lisa?
I only heard last week.
Anybody? John, you ever hear of a Tidewater initiative?
Tidewater Initiative.
Yeah.
Well, it has to do something with a tidal zone, obviously.
Well, he doesn't do VA.
No, that's why I asked. He does. It's if you guys ever have a, and I just found this out. I had no idea. My underwriter didn't know what it was either. Tidewater Initiative is for a VA appraisal. Let's say the appraisal's done on Monday. Well, if he initiates the Tidewater Initiative, if he invokes it, you have 48 hours to complain about that, to challenge that appraisal. That's it. After 48 hours, you have no right to challenge the appraisal. I've never heard that before in my life. Just so you know, I've been doing this a long time.
Tidewater
Yes, sir.
Initiative?
I like it.
Tidewater, yeah, right?
That's only if
You're
it
here at
says it
Tidewater.
now,
Huh? It says it, it'll say it in the body of the appraisal. It'll say the appraiser is invoking the
So he doesn't
Tidewater
want to hear anything
Initiative.
ever.
Right,
He's saying, you got 2 days to get back to me. If not, I don't want to hear from you. And that's the value.
Then the riptide takes away your opportunity.
And that's I was like,
Wow.
I never heard that. I just thought that might be something.
I'm going straight to only VA appraisals.
That's actually right.
Tide goes out.
You know how hard it is to get on VA system?
He's got to notify you because he has to notify you It'll actually, what it says, and I never, like you said, my appraiser was holding off on giving me the appraisal, she goes, I don't know the time order issues, I'm trying to find out what it is.
And the clock is in his face.
Well, and what it is well, again, I told them, I said, I'll go back and argue with the guy about the time order, but I said, you gotta give me the comps first. So they sent me comps and none of them were any good. The appraisal was good. It was a good appraisal. So I said, there's no sense in arguing with this, just so you know, with what you have. You got more fine tuning. But in the binding appraisal, he said that he actually has invoked the time order initiative and that on this date, he notified the lender and the realtor. So that's the date that it starts.
There's a countdown clock on the email that they sent.
It was on Saturday, it started to boot, it was on Saturday. I was like, are you kidding me?
Oh, okay, so if they do notify us, at least we can get a jump on
They
it.
give us 48 hours, right. But now that we know what it is,
But is it 48 hours of business days?
48 hours from the day that he notifies. I
That's
know.
not right, they shouldn't be allowed to
I
do
know,
it
it's
Saturday,
crazy.
unless
I
you're
strictly
giving
look
it
at it from a fair market value. Because I know the sales price of the property.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I will
Well,
reconsider.
Sorry, buddy.
I've done a lot,
I'm
I've done a
just saying,
lot
all
of
the comps are saying 250,
I've
your sales price is
never ever heard of it
252.
before.
So I'm not
I know, so the
that
only thing I can
good,
think
I
of
really
is
am
this
not, you
appraiser
know, and
is
it's
coming
not
in low
signed,
regular basis.
it's definitely an opinion. So, for that $2,000,
Probably
probably,
yelling at me.
we're gonna
Or they
find
have
it
48 hours
some way. So we're on a home equity loan, I have no clue what people's borrowing is. That's changed. We used to know that. And I really wish we did, but we used to know that, they totally took that out on a home equity. So, I wish we knew. Like I said, I used to work for, about, do I look at a property differently versus a refi versus sale?
Yeah, or a home equity line of credit.
Home equity lines of credit are done by the bank, they go up to Zillow, they don't even do an appraisal.
They still.
You actually, you have to request it though, most of the time you have to request it. Most of the time you have to request, because I think we just did something with hers, and she's like, don't even do this other thing, just send an appraiser out there. And they said, okay, fine, they sent an appraiser, and the guy comes down to, I see why you wanted an appraiser.
Right, exactly.
Makes a huge difference, so, yeah, it is, it's crazy.
But I don't look at a refinance, like I said, I look at a refinance a little bit different, because I don't know the refinance value. I don't know what you're borrowing, I don't know what you need,
Right.
you know, no, I run into this all the time though. I understand that my mortgage guy ain't allowed to talk to you and I need 280. Because the homeowner can tell me anything they
Exactly
want.
right.
The homeowner can tell me anything they
My
want.
lender told me to tell you this.
I get that all the time, all the time.
Yeah. It's always good to know these things. These are the tricks of the trade. I got fruit back there too. Fruit's out back there. Got some food, man. I saw you in there listening. Didn't listen, you can't have food. But if you listen, I'll be like, yeah.
I got hope here to keep me in check.
Yeah. You know Hope? From when she used to bring you?
No, she told me she was.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. I agree. I know. I don't know how long it's been since she's done it, but.
No, but at the back, you only go to the end, and then what you're saying.
What do you think? Am I gonna raise rates? I almost disagree with you. No, I just think that we have nowhere to fall.
Yeah, but I think they slowed down the real estate. I think they slowed down the real estate market.
Yeah, it's true.
Like I'm not, you know, you want to raise credit cards and car loans like that, because I think that's, you know,
Right.
I don't think that's as beneficial to the economy down there. I don't think it's sparking enough.
Right.
Enough volume to increase the sector. But I think a lot of purchases like, you know, get people back to work.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
to get people back to work, they want people back to work.